Okay, good day, everyone, and welcome to the Big Blue Bent podcast on the Triple B Network. I'm your continuing host, Jeff Joseph, and this time I'm actually putting the microphone in front of me. Usually it's on the side, but we're trying something a little different today, so we'll go ahead with it. So, and Matthew just flashes his. So, with me again are Matthew Conway, who's an advisor consultant at Capitol Hill Group, former worker on Parliament Hill and Queens Park. And returning with us again is our favorite doctor, Dr. Roy Eappen, internal medicine specialist and endocrinologist. Good to have you again, Doc, and of course the Conservatives' ultimate great knowledgeable person on the monarchy. So, no assurance we'll get to the Meghan and Harry interview. Well, maybe we will now that you did that. Okay, so let's get rolling. And what seems to be the only topic that we get every time, no matter how long we wait for the show, the topic has always where's the vaccine rollout going these days? So let me tee it off. So well, we've had approvals with AstraZeneca. We've had approvals with Johnson & Johnson. Those are jokes in themselves. We're suddenly going to be reining in vaccines now and delivery schedules until May, and all is good in the kingdom. And why does it not seem that way? Matthew, your take on what's going on lately?
Well, praise dear leader for getting us all these vaccines. He's doing a great job. But all in seriousness, I haven't been brainwashed to that point. But yeah, no, I saw a couple of tweets about from the weekly Sunday shows, and I know Blaine Higgs was on Evan Solomon talking about, refuting certain things that the federal government has been saying. And I saw that Rosemary Barton was going to have somebody from BC, Adrian Dix, to talk about the problems with their website. So you see that the narrative is back, that it's all the province's fault if needles don't get into arms. And you see, I guess the PMO comms people, comm shop has been working overtime to get that narrative going again. And I think we're just going to see that continue. Federal government, great job. Provinces, not great job. And that's going to continue. And once again, the journalists fall for it every single time.
Yeah. Doc, you're a medical guy. How do you see the progress here?
So, I mean, there is being some problems with, I don't understand how a province like Ontario or a province like British Columbia can't get a website up. Honestly,
actually, I have an explanation for that after you finish.
Okay, go ahead, Doc.
Well, I mean, there are thousands and thousands of programmers working for each of these provincial governments, and you would wonder. But the root of the problem is that the supply is far exceeds demand. And that's because even though we're buying millions more of these vaccines, I don't think we're going to get them till much later. I mean, the UK is now vaccinating people under like 30 to 40, and the Americans are doing everyone over the age of 18.
You saw Biden's speech a couple of nights ago. He's basically saying they're all vaccinated by May, and could be double vaccinated by July.
Yeah, and that's
at least 70 to 80% of the country.
Oh, and that's probably true in the UK as well. So, yeah. But once again, we have to remember that instead of going with our great friends, the United Kingdom and the United States, this weekend it came out that the Chinese government actively sabotaged the deal they made with we made with some Chinese manufacturer, and that's why
Bio. Yeah.
That's why we're in this mess. Are they still building that thing in your riding, Jeff?
Yeah, in Mount Royal, the plant's still going up. That's going to go to that's whenever it is eventually built. That's supposed to be late in the year. Novavax will eventually produce from there once it's approved. But they even said there's still a couple of months after that to get certain regulatory approvals. So Novavax would not even be producing out of there till early next year. Even if it got to start at the end of the year, it'd be producing out of a plant in North Carolina. So there you go.
So, So in spite of the fact that the US are in one day are doing more than, what we've done in several months, it's kind of embarrassing, except to the Trudeau government, who thinks it's a great victory.
Yeah. By the way, I should point out to you, without getting too much into Ontario and BC and the online things, which of course, a little sloppy and all that, but Ontario, it's the thing with the 38 different health units and getting the units to get. Anyways, I'll give a little bit of credit to Legault here, because my understanding is Quebec's online system, all they simply did is they had a system in place during H1N1. They just pulled that program out, updated it a little bit. The only problem they've ever had is once a new age group comes in, usually the first day the system gets overloaded with requests and there's shutdowns and delays. But other than that, everything you hear is most of the time people are getting in. It's smooth.
Yeah,
done.
I mean,
bravo, Premier Legault.
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm not.
No, and I'm not a fan of his either. But
in the last few days, they've vaccinated 39,000 people, which they're
a day,
which is pretty impressive but when you think about the numbers in the other places in the world that are doing it more efficiently, like a small country like Israel, that maybe smallness is an advantage, but what are we at, 50th place, 55th
yeah
place?
Well, I think we got up to 40th, but but remember Israel, Israel, small country and everything, but also didn't have vaccine capacity, didn't do any vaccine, but basically same straight of Canada, and now it sits I think now they officially call it 102% of 102 out of every 100 people vaccinated, and I think 57% of the country now is double dosed. So there you go. I mean, Israel's the model of everybody, but go, Matthew.
It's like that Oprah. It's like that Oprah meme. It's like you get a vaccine, right? No, we were talking about why certain provinces are having difficulties, and it's quite simple. Bloated bureaucracies, and there have multiple levels of approvals for everything, and the smallest details need to be approved by 100 people. And you've got your regional health people, and then you got your multiple regional health people, and then you've got your at the provincial level, and it's just layer upon layer upon layer of bureaucracy, and then anything has to go through the health ministry or whatever ministry, and then goes to cabinet office, and it's the never-ending merry-go-round to get anything done. And I think and then basically somebody identifies a problem, and then it takes 100 people to fix it, and as opposed to let's get this done as fast as possible. And it's a bloated bureaucracy.
But let me ask you, Matthew, you've worked in you've worked in a staffer, you've been a staffer in 2 levels of government. So yes, obviously what you're saying about the province is true, but the funny part is they get into all this, and for the people in the end, it doesn't matter, because Trudeau can just, let's face it, all this raining of vaccines it's funny, because anytime something Trudeau's criticized, the first answer that comes back is, oh, you're politicizing an issue. With vaccines is unbelievably politicized, because you can see what's going on right now. He's going to try to rein all these vaccines beyond belief, beyond capacity, and he's setting it up for the province. He wants the provinces to fail so he can point the point. But in the meantime, the federal government, let's face it, has a whole bureaucratic procurement procedure of its own, and yet nobody will talk about it but it's a mess too, right?
Speaking of bloated bureaucracy. Yeah, and Dr. Roy has talked about this on previous episodes of the podcast. Our health system is completely overloaded, and it's the same thing every year for the flu vaccine, and we never learn the lessons and do anything about it. And there will be a day of reckoning for healthcare in this country, not because we don't want a one single payer healthcare system. It's in the delivery, because the delivery system currently is inefficient. And when we've got health 50% of individual provincial budgets and higher, and our population getting older and older, we're going to have to make some hard decisions, and people are going to have to realize that we can't continue this way, and we're going to spend 60% of our budget on an inefficient model. Unions are going to have to get out of the way. and basically they are an impediment right now to progress, and they're the ones who are keeping the system bloated as it is, and yeah, the bureaucrats too. And but I said at the same time, like, we're going to have to do something, because if we're going to have say we're going to have the world's best healthcare system, we better actually have the world's best healthcare system, and not just in principle, not just in theory, but also in practice.
Doc, you're the ground level. I mean, you're not the staffer, you're the ground level guy. So what do you want to add here?
So I agree with Matthew, but why don't we do best practices of other systems?
Yep.
Why that we have to worship a system that doesn't actually completely work?
Sacred cow.
Cow. So,
Yep.
Every other country has some degree of private care. I mean, the UK has private hospitals, the French have private hospitals, the Swedish have private hospitals.
Yeah.
So everyone in the world has private hospitals. They can help relieve pressure on the public system. I mean, how would you like to be told that the only way you could actually get something done faster in this country is to go to the United States? And that's what, our wealthy do that all the time. Not even our wealthy. People along the border with the United States, in Toronto, often until recently, you used to be able to go to Buffalo and get a second opinion or go get an MRI that was taking 3 or 4 months in our system to get. So, I mean, best practices seems to be, to me, a way to improve the healthcare system and improve efficiencies. But it's all a sacred cow, and no one wants.
Yeah, we accept mediocrity.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And anytime a party or somebody comes up with an idea to fix a system, Kim Campbell was right. An election campaign is the worst time to bring up substantive policy decisions. I remember Jean Charest bringing out his credit card and essentially saying, I prefer paying for my medical, people need to pay for their medical, they don't have to pay with their health card instead of their credit card, which was in response to plans by the ADQ to take a look at the time, to take a look at different models, like best practices, as Dr. Roy was saying, and got politicized, and people kind of shrunk away from it because it's a political non-starter, because it's become, like you said, a sacred cow. Oh, they want to privatize everything and people are going to go poorer for health. No, nobody was actually ever saying that. People were just saying single payer, private delivery.
Okay. So here's, look, I'm not a staffer. I'm not on the front line. I'm not a medical frontline worker, and God bless them for everything they've done so far with what they've been dealt. Here's my thing right now, and I got to go back to the vaccines, and I just can't get over the fact that now 6 million vaccines by the end of the month might turn out to be 8 million, and I just keep saying this over and over and again. Our seniors population alone is 7 million people. These are the people that are well north of 90% of the deaths, the ICUs, probably over 85% of the hospitalizations. No matter what we do at this point, we have completely failed them. And I don't know, Trudeau can't say the word senior citizens. And I got news for you. I'm supposed to support Aaron O'Toole. I rarely hear him use those words either. The fact of the matter is, no matter what, we have completely failed the most vulnerable people in our society, and thousands of people have been rendered either very sick or actually died from it. Now, as for the distribution of the vaccines, remember, Trudeau's getting a kind of good luck thing here, because remember, the rise to 8 million was partially because you could get one more dose out of a Pfizer vial, so there's 16% alone. What else here? So AstraZeneca, if it ever comes at all, they're pulling from the poor, basically, because that's all coming out of the Covovax initiative. The Johnson & Johnson's a very funny thing, because they passed it, and anyone who's followed pharma activities all along has said Johnson & Johnson has major supply issues going on. I mean, Johnson & Johnson's wonderful because it's one dose, but I had heard here for the longest time that even if Canada approved it, they may not get any shipments until at least September. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with that one. I've seen one. Oh, and by the way, we're also kind of stretching things here because that NACI, which is the Advisory Commission on on Immunizations nationally, has said, "Oh, don't worry, people, we can ignore the manufacturers, and people can. You can wait 4 months between vaccines. You don't have to wait 21 or
So,
28 days." Yeah.
so
Sorry,
yeah,
Doc.
you know, it's interesting you say that, because a lot of us are feeling, because I've had my first shot, but they've now decided my second shot won't be for 4 months. And they were asked, actually, there's beginning to be a bit of a backlash among some of the vaccine scientists who say, well, there's absolutely no evidence of this. And they were asked, if you had enough vaccines, would you do this? And they said, no. So,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, if you remember back when Quebec was probably the first to go this road. When we were talking 21 or 28 days, the manufacturer, and when Quebec was saying, "Oh no, well let's stretch, we can stretch it to up to 3 months." And you remember the backlash, and it almost started from Trudeau really, and they all said, "Oh no, you can't do that. You got to. How can you ignore the manufacturers? What kind of science are you relying on?" And now the national guys are doing it. Oh, okay, that's fine.
Did I miss the memo that the word senior citizen, the term senior citizen, was no longer, apropos and whatever?
Hello.
Are we supposed to use the word, the term more?
Well, it's used on this show enough.
No. I was going to say maybe we should use the term, more experienced citizens instead of senior citizens. But like maybe I don't know. Like, has it become like taboo to say that now? But because you're right, nobody in Ottawa will say it.
It's funny and it's tragic because nobody is really relating what has happened here on a human level. And if there's anybody affected the most, it's listen, the worker, people who lost their jobs and everything, of course, but senior citizens are dying from this. And we almost give it, and we do give it lip service. I mean, somebody's got to tune into that. I mean, I just, now anyway, so, and then, by the way, AstraZeneca, of course, there's been question marks all over the world about AstraZeneca, about both the effectiveness of it on senior citizens, there's suggestions that it causes blood clotting. Listen, I mean, from my perspective, I would have said, look, if it's got all these risks for 65 and over, well, bring it in anyways and let people under 65 go take their chances with it and see what happens. Look, anything is better than nothing. A good flu shot.
There's a trial program in Ontario we got a batch of expiring vaccine.
Right.
They're giving out in Ontario, and when they announced that, of course, the website crashed. Some of my friends are going to get it. So and it's great. You go to a pharmacy, they give the pharmacy people give you the shot, and you go home after waiting 15 minutes to make sure you don't have allergics. The other thing is, a real leader is BB. BB apparently called the Pfizer CEO 30 times. I mean, I don't think the Trudeau has actually spoken to the Pfizer CEO yet. So
allegedly once and recently, maybe, you don't know. I mean, he's the guy. He's the guy that puts rollout scripts before the meetings happen. Remember?
Exactly.
So anyway, but one more point I'd like to personally make is, if we're going to sit there and, if Trudeau wants to sit there and point fingers at everything, I mean, I have to say, listen, we could argue to death about what happened in the United States over the last year in terms of deaths and whatever, and point all the fingers. Good job there, Andrew Cuomo. Beautiful. And he's not the only one, by the way. There's about 5 other governors, but at least 5 other governors. But let's put it in perspective here. I actually agree with the part about Joe Biden's speech. I don't think he's responsible for it. I think Donald Trump is, when he says the vaccination rollout is basically America going to war. And when it's come to vaccinations a day, if the states can't keep up, the United States has deployed the Army. They have deployed the federal FEMA, the Federal Emergency System. They're putting all hands on deck. If Trudeau is so interested in making sure that now this sudden massive surge of vaccines gets into everybody's arms fast enough, call your army, get your Red Cross, get Red Cross involved. Yeah, well, we supposedly do, or get them from overseas, or I don't know, are the ones overseas now criminals? Because, apparently there's a whole thing now. If you're outside of Canada, you must, for whatever reason, you must be a criminal. So maybe the armies maybe armies deployed overseas are criminals. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, you get your army involved. You get everything involved. Like you talk to your premiers and say, let's get the community doctors. Let's get anything who qualify and get them, like, because the United States are acting like they're going to war here. They're putting they got the drive-throughs and the stadiums and we could do that here if Trudeau, but we get such a free ride in the press, and the public just sits back and says, we have the best healthcare in the system in the world. Don't worry about it. Although we can only worry if we worry about it. It's all the province's fault. I mean, it's almost like I have words and then I run out of them. So I don't know. Is there anything to add on this? Anybody? No.
Media doesn't do their job. It's just as simple as that, and quite
frankly, to which I say, what's left of the media? I mean,
well, yeah.
You saw the announcement about Huffington Post.
Canada shut down.
Well, I mean, and you and I have discussed several times what's happened at CJD and CFRB and the rest of the Bell
Media Radio Network. No newsrooms.
So, I mean, are they going to just make it up as they go along, or they're just getting from the Canadian press, which I'm sure will start laying off people in the near future?
And the funny part is, we sit there and we have people, and listen, we have people in Ottawa. It's just, we better be afraid of the media. They've got reach. I mean, they're shutting down, they're closing, they're consolidating, they're barely holding on to be alive, because I got news for you. The bulk of the Canadian people are tuned out. They're probably listening more to podcasts or internet little buzzwords and stuff like that. They're going to alternative media. Look, post-millennial and Rebel News and et cetera. I mean, and PIE or what, I mean, on all sides of the spectrum. People are going, those places are Canada land. Those places are surviving. They're not living on government money. Like, at some point, you got to clue in and say, people have left. Stop thinking stop making the mainstream media, especially in Canada, be bigger than what it is. It's in shambles. So put your ear on the ground and actually listen to the people. Get out of the Ottawa bubble and see what the heck's actually going on.
Well, that's the other. Yeah, no, that's the other thing too. Is those who are left, how much budget do they have to do the long form stories, the long investigative reports, as opposed to the clickbaity kind of quick, hey, we just got talking points from whatever party, and let's put that in a story, right?
Yeah.
And package it up, and we'll get some clicks out of it. And it's very disappointing, because we're not getting the quality journalism and kind of the fourth estate to ask questions, truth to power, whatever term you want to use, and it's become kind of the sensationalist. So people are tuning out. And here's one: how can News Talk 1010 still use the word news in their name, because they don't have a newsroom? So isn't that kind of false and misleading advertising?
News Talk CTV. Anyways, you know what? It's getting miserable. But I always say, listen, we on the show, when there's good media reports and good media research, we will listen. Robert Fife does good story. We always, I've talked repeatedly about Canada Land and the Wee scandal, which they've been all over on for more than since going back before the scandal. So you guys,
I have to give Mercedes Stevenson.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the best in the business. A wonderful reporter.
Wonderful.
I appreciate people who can, even if they don't necessarily have my point of view, I would like to actually get news. I mean, my problem is lazy journalism. Right. People go, the journalists should be banned from Twitter. They go on Twitter, they see three people say one thing, they go out and say, oh, it's a national crisis because three people on Twitter say this, and make it a story. It's insane.
Yeah. And I mean, and Mercedes is a good person too, but she does quality work. And there was another story she broke today about from a civil servant from DND that used to be a soldier that talked about her experience at Gagetown back in the 90s, and it's not a good look for the Canadian Armed Forces. And we have Holly Doan from Blacklock's report.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what? I subscribed. I gave them the $315 or $314 a year.
But you know what? Worth it.
I think we should actually reward quality journalism.
100%.
They actually do stuff that
Yeah.
regular outlets, the CBC has billions of dollars. Why don't they break anything?
No, they actually steal the stories from Blacklocks, and literally, and Blacklocks is actually still in court with the federal government, who basically takes one subscription and then sends the article to everybody. So, breaking their own copyright laws. So, I mean, they're fighting the good fight, as they say, and doing good work, and work that is what every reporter has the ability to do. It's through access to information. As broken as that system is, but that's the work that they're doing, and it goes back to, do they have budgets for for other outlets, budgets for long form kind of long-term investigations? Because and I'm it seems like they don't, or nobody, or they don't know how to use the access to information request system, or they just don't have the patience for it.
Okay, good finish off. And you know what, Doc, since you're here, I think our next topic should be, we should talk about this, the passing, the reading, I think it's second reading passage of Bill C7, which is the medically assisted dying bill. I think it's now past second reading. It has to go to the Senate again. It's been an ongoing battle, of course. I'll just give a little backgrounder here. So this came to being after a Quebec Superior Court ruling, based pretty much, for lack of a better, to shorten it up, basically, it told the federal government, look, you guys got to relook your laws on this and get back to us. So typical liberals, they stalled around with it, they fumbled around with it, they went to the courts, got two extensions on presenting a new law. So this week they passed it, and interesting. Now, the only reason they were able to pass it is because the bloc of all people voted along with the liberals to let it go. So the conservatives and the NDP voted against it. The independents were basically split, but enough votes to take it back to the Senate. The biggest sticking point for which at least the conservatives blocked it is that, for lack of a better way of putting it, the law that they're proposing is more or less saying that a person who is mentally ill should have the right to order a medically assisted death, and that's sticking. And Doc, I'm going to go to you first as a medical doctor. What's your take on that provision?
Well, I'm not a big fan of this medical aid in dying in the first place, because I think that everyone in this country who's dying should probably be allowed, given the opportunity to go to palliative care. I mean, it's the law of the land now, so I have to accept that. But what I was promised when they became the law of the land is they wouldn't do this to people who couldn't consent and people who were depressed and other such things. And, everyone keeps saying there's no slippery slope. There's a slippery slope. We've seen this now in other countries, where in Holland, 20 and 25-year-olds have asked for medical aid in dying because they're terminally depressed, and they've been given this right. And next, we're going to say parents can ask it for their children. And I don't know, it makes me very, very nervous. And what does it tell people? We keep saying we care about mental health issues. It's almost impossible to get mental health in this country. Even people like me who know the mental health professionals, it's very hard to get appointments for people and get mental health care. So what are we telling them? We're telling them, well, we don't have enough money to help you, so maybe you should kill yourself. I mean, I think it's horrible.
Okay, Matthew, Matthew, it's a perfect cue here, because you've obviously been very public and very open with your battles with depression. I mean, we did our special Bill Let's Talk segment, so I guess instead of a medical viewpoint, you're going to talk from a personal viewpoint and maybe a political one as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, so as someone who's suffered for over 20 years and probably more from depression and anxiety, and with many lows in those 20 years, it goes back to the concept of, I'll use a term from law school, from the Quebec Civil Code, consentement libre et éclairé, and might as well use the law school vernacular because I'm still paying for it. But it's just like somebody, when you're at your lowest, quite frankly, you're not thinking clearly. And you're, as you can imagine, at your lowest, and you don't have much want to live, and basically you would sign any paper because you want to get away from the pain. Right. And that's what, so there are people with mental health issues. That's why they get into the booze. That's why they get into the drugs, because they just want the pain to go away. So essentially you're putting a process in front of them saying, hey, you can you can wipe away the pain, so to speak, get rid of it, just sign here and we'll take care of it for you. I worry about, there are people that, that have said, and I've seen it, that would have signed those papers in at their lowest points, and now they're, they've sought help and everything, and they're leading good, productive lives. So is their consent very clear? Is their consent free? And that, I think, the legal community is going to have to take a hard look at that. And to think from personal experience, my answer is no. Everybody's different. I'll allow that, but and some people, like I said, they suffer, and never get out of it, and others kind of find a way to deal with it, and never goes away, but they find a way and to kind of live with it and be at peace with it in a certain way. So I think, like I said, the legal community is going to have to take a really hard look at this. And I think the certain people that know, the struggles or whatever are all against this. And, and I think those who are for it, I don't think have considered the consequences of this. And this will end up back in court. Plain and simple. And like I said, from personal experience and talking to other people, you're not in a quote unquote your right mind, because you just want the pain to go away. And I think it goes back to the concept of consent, right? And are you in a position to give your consent? Have you considered all the factors? Quite frankly, in some cases you just do not want to live anymore, and so yeah, it's just a matter of, and suicide is a problem in this country, and it still is, and in some cases still taboo and stigmatized. But
Yeah.
this is just like, all right, well, we're just gonna give them a free pass, give them a pass in this legislation, and basically do it legally, and without thinking of some of the consequences. And like I said, it's going to end up back in court.
Well,
Yeah.
the other thing, Matthew, I mean, did you have trouble getting access to mental health professionals and stuff? Because I find that across the country, that is a major, major issue.
And probably worse now.
Yeah, well, you have to be patient for it, no pun intended. And essentially, you have to get referred by your family doctor, and then they send the form and everything. And then back in the days when they used to do it by fax, in some cases they still do. And and then finally somebody would call you for an assessment, but there's lag time between all this, right? And then there was a situation where, it was I heard in Ontario, somebody got referred to in the summertime and basically only got called in the spring of the next year. And because there was no available times, right? So your
wait times the wait times in Quebec are even longer.
Yeah, so your choices are either to wait or go to the private sector, and not everybody can afford those rates, right? And actually, I would say insurance companies pay not too much for a session, right? Let's say you have a psychologist or a psychiatrist charging 180. I've seen cases where, you know, the insurance company will pay for 60. So that's $120 out of your pocket. And not everybody can afford that. Even people who make decent salaries can't afford that with all the other bills, right? So somebody would turn up and say, well, you can deduct that on your taxes at the end of the year. Well, that's, you know, that's a long ways away, right? When you actually have to pay it out of pocket. Yeah. So the system is broken. And the thing is, here's the other thing too, is they might assign you somebody, but you might not click with that person. That might not, the relationship might not work, right? And it's you know, it's a very personality thing, right? It's not like going to see a doctor for an oncologist for cancer. It's totally different. You know, if you're not clicking with the psychologist or the psychiatrist, I mean, it's you know, you're gonna have to go through the process again to find somebody new or get referred to somebody new, right? So it's just it's a long process, and I think people underestimate it. And all I would say to a lot of our lawmakers, if you haven't gone through it, I think take a pass on this one, and basically refer yourself to people who actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah. So listen, I mean, my simple take is it's a difficult kind of law to just kind of appease everybody.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, aid in dying, it's a very personal decision, and you conflict yourself with humanitarian aspects with with freedoms in a democratic society, right? So, but actually, it's funny, Matthew, because you touch on the legal thing, and I pose one major question mark that would happen if it comes out of this, because if we're deciding that the mentally ill are of proper frame and mind to make a decision like that, what happens with all these criminal cases where lawyers try to argue that the accused lack the mental capacity to understand the consequences of his actions, and then should be found not guilty by reason of insanity or has anyone even thought of that part yet? Like, so, you know, if you're saying a mentally ill person could kill himself, then it means they could have the mental capacity to understand a criminal action. No?
Yeah, no, and I guess that's when we get into, you know, what I call unintended consequences of
Yeah.
a bill, right? And you get in a situation. Here's another one. So you somebody in a situation, they're very depressed and they want to sign the papers. Their family will have to go to court and essentially try to get an injunction to argue that their son or daughter is not of their right mind, essentially to save their life. And you know, and it's just which, you know, lawyers.
Matthew,
Speaking of fees, yeah.
Much
Doctor?
worse than that is that they could do all of this in secret, because
Yeah.
medical confidentiality laws, they could do this without, you know, some
It's true.
18 or 20-year-old could go ask for medical aid and die and be, you know, get that done before his parents even realize it's happened. I mean, you know, I know people are free and should be able to do what they want, but I mean,
Well, and
you
then
know, I would like the chance to talk out one of my loved ones out of doing this if I, you know,
yeah.
give me
Well,
a chance.
yeah, you know, and you talked about, you know, where does it stop? You know, you know, we've got different, I think, different in legal age of consent to medical services in the country for different things, right? In some cases it's 14, and you know, in other jurisdictions, and we're talking the same thing, you know, for abortions and everything. So where does it stop? I think everybody here has been a teenager at some point, right?
Yeah.
And everything's the end of the world when something happens for teenagers.
Sure.
Especially these days with social media and
Yep.
all the different things, right? Where does it stop, right? And you know, Dr. Ray was saying, you know, it's done in secret, but anybody, like, you know, where you know, when's the next shoe to drop to say, well, you know, if they're able to consent and be to this and that at 14, then why can't they do consent to this, right? And like I said, it's a slippery slope, and where does it stop?
Exactly. Well spoke. Okay, let's move on, and we should get to tomorrow. So we're taping this a day before our favorite real estate flippers come save the world It's all about the children brothers. Craig and Mark Kielburger are back in committee to give further testimony. And in a unique situation, they had to do this basically under summons because they refused to appear originally. Then they got summons to do so. And then suddenly they had a spokesperson, some of us know, named Guy Giorno. He's got a bit of a conservative background, came as a spokesperson, and anything. One thing led to another. And they're going to be appearing with a lawyer, and will only answer specific questions because it's not really being publicized. They're also saying that their testimony is going to be limited because they can't reveal information while they're under a quote police investigation. We don't know from who. Thank goodness, if it's actually true. So we got the circus going tomorrow, in which we don't have I plead the fifth like the United States, but what are we to expect tomorrow, Matthew?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, and notwithstanding Guy Giorno, that the man has a family and he's out there to earn living.
Sure.
So
Listen, he's doing his job.
I don't ever begrudge somebody for representing somebody. That being said, since the start of this whole scandal, the We Charity and the Kielburger brothers, have made some peculiar decisions regarding the way they are perceived by the public and the public relations, and they just come off as very arrogant and very standoffish. How dare you question us? We've been doing good for children. How dare you even question our motives? And guess what? You're at the Parliament of Canada. Of course, it's political. But who? This is the question: who is giving them public relations advice? Because they are, and if they are, and they're not listening, that's one thing. But if they're giving them the advice to continue doing what they're doing, well, I would say nobody should hire that firm ever again, because it's backfiring big time, and actually it makes the Kielburger brothers look guilty. And that's
maybe because they are.
They are guilty.
We'll use the word allegedly for now,
It's
but
they are. How do you spin it?
No, but you actually look contrite and you actually cooperative and whatever, and they are everything but. There is actually Craig Kielburger Secondary School in Milton, Ontario.
Yeah,
my cousin's daughters went there, where we knew that school should be renamed. And yes, they haven't been found guilty of anything, but this is not these are not an example for children, people who have taken advantage of children in the past. And I don't think if I was a parent in that school, I'd be like, change the name of the school. I don't care
with a Velcro plaque.
Exactly. If you call it Milton Secondary or PS
until you figure it out.
Public School 53, whatever. I would actually also probably say the same thing about, there's a Julie Payette school, I think, in Whitby or Pickering.
There is.
And that's probably
another one.
That's not probably an example for children either. So
Doc, step in here, please.
So Rex Murphy, who I love, wrote an article in the last day or two saying, who the hell do these people think they are? I mean, I am flabbergasted at the arrogance. I think in 120 years, no one has actually defied a parliamentary request. I mean, if they had any brains in their head, they would have accepted it, looked contrite, and never answered a single question. It's easy to do that if you really want to.
It's a fine parliamentary tradition not to answer questions.
Exactly.
I'm trying to remember. I think Franz, what's his name over from the Moroni thing? I think he once declined a summons. I could be wrong on that. Franz. I can't.
Karl-Heinz Schreiber. Yeah.
Karl-Heinz Schreiber.
He didn't have a choice because he was sitting in a detention center in Toronto, facing extradition. And
you're right.
Then Speaker Peter Milliken issued a writ to have him transferred to Ottawa to come and testify.
Correct. Sorry, Doc, go on.
The Kielburgers, they kind of make me sick. I mean, I don't know if you saw the testimony of Mr. Cowan, who's a an American journalist.
But a doc, we actually did read Cow. We did a whole segment on Reed Cowan in the last show, and we excerpt his testimony at the end of the broadcast. So just so you know,
very interesting to hear this man, and it sickened me. His 7-year-old kid died, so he raised millions of dollars to make a school in his name. And like you said, there's a Velcro plaque.
Yeah.
And if I think he's gotten the IRS involved in the U.S., who are barracudas, and I think that
he wants to get the IRS involved. Yeah,
I think that I'd like to see, are they actually under police investigation?
Well, they'll never those. Usually, if they are, they probably will not. The RCMP or the CRA or the IRS may not actually acknowledge it until bracelets are placed on people's wrists, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So these people still have $40 million in Toronto real estate, maybe in other places as well.
Oh, they have all over the world
in the so-called profit wing of their charity. Have you ever heard of that before?
Me to we. Yeah, I know it's not usual for most charities, but anyway, yeah, go on.
And even if it is a usual thing, it's usually the other way around. Usually the profit wing is giving money to the charity wing.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I think these two probably deserve criminal investigation. And if this is what this charity is doing, it makes me wonder about other charities too. So I mean, I try as part. I'm a person of faith, and I believe in that. I need to help my fellow man as much as I can possibly afford, and it makes me very dubious about charities, and I don't like that. So, and I try to research the charities I give money to, and I'm proud to say I've never given $1 to the wee people.
Yeah.
But I mean,
sorry, I have to. Know what? Go ahead.
I was going to say, there's people talk about burden of proof and everything, but the Kielburger brothers just do not pass the smell test, right? And there's you watch them, and it's like, and you say they're hiding something, or they're being obtuse on purpose, and it's just and yeah, I'd be afraid if I were them to testify as well, to appear as witnesses, for the simple reason, like I said, they have something to hide. But quite frankly, if I was advising them, I would be telling them, guys, do the best acting you've ever done. Look contrite and look like everything. Don't be yourself. In other words, don't look arrogant. And quite frankly, there's a way of answering questions without actually answering the question. Like I said, it's a fine parliamentary tradition, right? Just watch Question Period for a week, and you'll see how that works. But yeah, no, I mean there are people, high profile people, that have gone before as witnesses before parliamentary committees and Senate committees in the past, and the whoever's asking the questions are frustrated at the end because they didn't get an answer. And there's ways of doing it. There's ways of running out the clock, right? And there's many ways of saying nothing for 5 minutes, and basically, like I said, running out the clock on opposition MPs or Charlie Angus's questions, right? So I just think that no matter what, they have played this completely wrong, and this is a case where their arrogance is going to bite them in the ass.
Well, you hope so, but listen, we still have within the Liberals and among Canadians, we have people who will go out there and still say, "Oh, come on, you guys all busted up a children. It was a children's charity. They're all about the children." But you know what? If I was
Amanda Alvaro,
exactly,
who was basically making that same argument for months on Twitter.
Yeah. So what I would say, look, and if I was the Conservatives, I was the opposition. If I was the person who actually cared about humanity, I would tell people to go watch Reed Cowan's testimony again and again and again and again. That's number one. And I would tell other people, say, why are you guys continuing on this? And I would say, listen, not only Canada, but around the world, we had parents and children who were raising, they were given pennies and dimes and dollars and they were giving it to this organization, and look what they did. I mean, what have they done other than bought real estate? I mean, they were built up into international sensations, and children all over the world were helping raise money for this cause. That
Well,
should matter.
Well, it's even more perverse than that. So I think in schools there were some drives that anybody who questioned where the money was going, or if they fully participate, were ostracized.
Well, my own. Let me confess, my own son in his high school, he was 13 year. I mean, he's 14 now. He's 13 years old. They had one of what they call pods, these extracurricular programs, and one of them was called the Me to We pod, and it was to help the Me to We. It was to help the We organization. There were tons of schools that had all these programs, and they did fundraisers, and they helped. And they were raising $10,000, $13,000 here to build this in Kenya and that in Ecuador and this. And it's gone, and it's just turned out to be a real estate scam. I mean,
Well,
what more does it take to convince people what's really gone on here?
Well, and these kids were doing it out of the goodness of their heart to help kids in other countries, and to watch that evaporate or be a mirage. Be a mirage, then you're gonna have a lot of cynical kids, basically
to teach them to be global citizens.
Yeah, but
for what?
Yeah, and so next time somebody comes and tries to say, "Hey, can you help us to help kids?" or they're going to say, "No, I've been screwed before. I'm not putting time into this." Right? So that's
the other very, very obvious thing is that the liberals keep wanting this all to go away because they're up to their necks in this. Right. I mean, the prime minister is up to his neck in it. I mean, his family were basically the first employees of the We Foundation. They've all got money. His wife, his mother, his brother, and I think Bill. Him. I don't remember if he did.
They haven't necessarily proven that he has personally. Oh no, they kind of said he did, but before he became an MP or whatever. So which is fine. I mean, listen, whatever.
Well, here's the other thing too. So there are some people that are saying, well, hey, this investigation was supposed to be about a contract awarded by the government of Canada to this charity, right? Yeah. And why are they delving into what We Charity? You don't know, quite frankly, where an investigation will take you. You follow the trail, and it seems to be some impropriety going on at this We Charity and this organization, this pyramid of organizations, and you follow we're talking about an organization, and this is why it matters, why Parliament should take a look at it, is the fact that one, they were doing business with the government of Canada on numerous occasions, but two, this is a charity that has a tax exemption, right? Which afforded by legislation passed by Parliament, and it also also dealing with Canadian children in schools and doing a lot of work on that side. I think it merits, even if it's outside the scope of the actual contract in question, this merits investigation because somebody has to do it. And at the end of the day, the MPs basically their electors are parents, and people say, oh, it's all a political show. Well, guess what? I mean, you have political parties, everything's political, right? And it's just, but it doesn't make the questions from the Bloc and the NDP and the Conservatives any less legitimate, right? So and the thing is, quite frankly, if the Kielburger brothers are worried about hostility, then maybe change your attitude and maybe you'll see less hostile questions.
Good. Okay. Good close. You know what? Well, we got a few minutes left. Doctor, you baited me right in on this because in the Reed Cowan testimony, he also called out for all these big celebrities that were associated with We to start calling them out too. And you basically heard nothing. But of course, one of those celebrities he called out personally was Oprah Winfrey. And those of you who tuned in last week, I couldn't be bothered for many reasons. So we had the famous Meghan and Harry interview with Oprah, and we had, so apparently all these securities. I mean, the one thing I got from a Canadian perspective is apparently all this money we were paying to give them security help while they were temporarily living in Canada apparently didn't happen because they had to go run to Tyler Perry and et cetera, because they weren't feeling secure even when they were here, and Buckingham Palace wasn't giving them royal security. Doc, did you watch this show? What do we take from it?
I have to admit I did not, because I didn't want to vomit repeatedly.
Okay.
You know, I had a lot of time for Prince Harry. I'm very, very disappointed. You know, so these people keep saying that they were shut out by the monarchy. During this interview, apparently, Miss Meghan said when she heard that Prince Philip was in hospital, she picked up the phone and called her. Very few people can call the sovereign on a regular landline. I mean, you know, it's all it's kind of funny, but she's the victim. And Harry said his father cut him off. The boy is in his late 30s. I mean, the father was supporting him until recently. His great grandmother, the Queen Mother, had left him 10, 12 million pounds. His mother had left them 10, 15 million pounds. I mean, am I supposed to feel sorry for people who can't live on 30 million pounds sterling? I don't know. I mean,
Maybe they gave a lot of it to we. I don't know. Go ahead,
I
go,
mean,
Doc.
I got to say that, you know, as you've probably seen, their numbers in the United Kingdom they're tanking. I mean, you know, you don't attack your own family. You don't attack your own family. And with completely nebulous charges, they said someone said something about the color of their son's skin. They won't
Before
say
he was
who.
born. Yeah, someone said they were going to be concerned about the baby, the color of the baby's skin, and I don't know. Well, anyway, I haven't.
But you know, I mean, look.
But regardless,
you don't give people an opportunity to defend themselves if you just say someone randomly, like, and people just all make, and then later on, Oprah said it wasn't the Queen or Prince Philip. You know, I mean, I don't know what they're planning to do. I have to tell you that from what I understand, they want to have a life in the United States, and they don't care what people in the rest of the Commonwealth and in the United Kingdom, because people in the Commonwealth and in the United Kingdom think that they're flakes. You know, I mean, you know, when your grandfather is in the hospital, is it really a good idea to go out and talk about them? I mean, and you know what's really disappointing? Oprah did not challenge any of it. Oprah just went, you get a car and you get a car.
Well, they got $7 million from CBS to go ahead and do this. So.
Yeah, so you know, I mean,
nice racket.
Perhaps they should notice that Meghan doesn't get along with her own family. She doesn't speak to her own father. She doesn't speak to her own sisters and brothers. I mean, you know, this is not you know, it wasn't an interview. It was just basically allowing these people to say whatever they wanted. And, you know, there have been some fact checking of what they said, and it's basically mostly not true. And, you know, Jen Gerson just wrote an article because she was quite excited when they came to Canada. And she said, you know, Colby Kosh told her, you know what, they'll be in LA in 6 months. And she's, no, they've come here. And they just took off. I mean, you know, I'm very disappointed, and I wish them well. But, you know, why do we pay attention to these people? They're no longer members of the royal family by their own. My fear is they have a studio called Archwell, and that they're going to start themselves off as the Kardashians.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, Matthew, put on your monarchist crown and interject here.
Well, I did watch it, not live, but
Okay.
because it's kind of like you're passing on let's say on a highway and there's a car crash. I wanted to see what the fuss was about, so I was curious from that end, but also from a PR standpoint. One thing that was clear to me is that this was rehearsed. I'm sure everything was passed by PR people. Yes, they didn't know the question, but they had a feeling what the questions were going to be. On Oprah, obviously, Oprah is friends with the Duchess. She was invited to the wedding. As for the comment about skin color, there are three sides to every story, right? One side, the other side, and the truth somewhere in the middle. And it could have been a passing comment. I wonder, if he's not going to have, is going to be pale white like the rest of us. Maybe he'll have a nice skin color or whatever. And it's just like sometimes little things like that could be very misinterpreted. It might not even have been something about negative. It could have been something positive. Oh, like he won't be pasty white like the rest of us. And so I give the benefit of the doubt on that one. But that they knew that was gonna be the clip, right? That everybody was gonna throw on. So and then there were headlines. The worst crisis to hit the monarchy in 85 years. Now there have been worse, and quite frankly, people are gonna forget about this and go on their merry way. And it excited a lot of people. It got viewership in the United States, as Dr. Roy was saying. The Harry and Meghan's numbers are low in the United Kingdom, and people have a great deferential to the Queen. And I think it's just and I think everybody knows, because most people, they're experts now because they watch The Crown, but they know that this is a machine, and there are hangers on that basically are the ones controlling these people. Although there was one thing that Harry said, and I actually agree, like his brother, his father, they're trapped. If you hear stories about his father wanting this or that when he was younger, and then the institution, quote unquote, wouldn't allow it. You feel bad for someone like that. But at the end of the day, that's you take the good, you take the bad, and those are the facts of life, right? So and sorry, I had to get that one in. But so it's just one of those things, like, hey, and Oprah, I think, did broach it. Hey, you lived a life of luxury. Isn't kind of that the trade-off, right? And it's just. Yeah, and I get it. You're sitting in a castle or wherever, and you can't go out because you can't have dinner with friends or whatever. Well, guess what? I mean, that was kind of the deal. When you marry into the royal family, you're not going to be able to go and have dinner in London on a whim, right? It's
but you know what? She did go to New York and have a $500,000 bridal baby shower. The problem with a lot of what she said is it was just patently false. She said she never Googled the royal family before becoming a member. And what it makes Harry look bad. Apparently she was suicidal, but her husband was afraid to get mental health. He with his brother and sister-in-law are leading a mental health charity.
Yeah,
he's gotten mental health. When Diana was alive and she had mental health issues,
I think they could access. I think they could have access to quality mental health care. No?
They don't it's not like a royal is going to go down to whatever street in London and go into a psychiatrist's office. Those people are sent for, right? Yeah. So
anyway, listen. Well, okay, so go ahead. Listen, I'll step in here. Listen, again, I don't disagree that Meghan may have felt suicidal or had a mental health issue. And listen, I'd speak out and whatever that. But I just got, my whole perspective of this seems to be pretty simple. Number one, it was a King Edward and Wallace Simpson. Didn't they? They just eventually they gave up. They gave up the throne. They gave up the monarchy. They took off to France. Have a nice life. I didn't remember them ever going on 1940s TV or radio to wallow in self-pity about what they did. You know what? Edward liked her. She was a divorcee. That's enough of this. Let's go to France.
They were too, well, to be fair, they were too busy talking to Hitler.
Yeah, well, okay, but leaving that aside, but in general, what I'm saying, and then number two, I think a big thing that came out of this, and let me rewind this a bit. I had either the luxury or the not luxury of I remember being in, it was history. I had history in grade 12 because Ontario had grade 12 back in the, well, they still do actually. But I actually had a teacher, and the entire that entire school year was all about the so-called about what's known as the peerage system. So I learned inside and out about royal families and royal rules and stuff like that. So while I have the great monarchist here, let me check, because one of the big points my understanding came out of that interview is there was also a feeling of insult and whatever when it was determined that when Meghan determined that none of their children could be given would be given royal titles. And to my understanding, I remember there's something called the letters patent. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll check with you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Queen issued the letters patent to William when he married Kate. Am I not mistaken on that?
So yes, so the letters patent from George V limited the size of those who could be called HRH. You know, she seems to think that because you're in the line of succession, that you have to be a royal. Many of them, you know, Princess Anne's children deliberately didn't ask for titles, and they don't have titles, and they're quite high up in the line.
And I think Princess Anne requested that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
And in fact, the way it works. Archie would be the Earl of Dumbarton just by being the son of a duke, but they said they don't want that. And the letters patent say that the sons in the direct line of the sovereign and the heir to the throne are princes. So which
makes sense,
when Her Majesty passes away, and may that be many, many years in the future, when his father becomes king, his son will become Prince Archie. But, you know, I don't know if they actually, I'm sure Harry knows this, but Meghan seems to know nothing about nothing. Anyway.
Well, yeah, and if she didn't know, ask.
Or Google it.
But you know what? But you know what? Making that claim on national television is more explosive than the truth.
Yeah, but
because no one is good. You know, this is not an era where people actually look up actual information.
Exactly. It's
all a feeling. It's all a feeling.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And nobody's going to know what letters patent is. Like, no one's going to sit there and verify it. So it just makes for sensational television. Yep. And it's just, I don't know what to say. And in the end, I keep saying, you know, we're making a thing about a guy who's realistic, you know, a couple who's realistically not going to be the king and queen of England ever. And we're talking about,
or Canada.
And it's like, you know, you were not that really hot stuff of an actress. I mean, I still remember her as one of the Deal or No Deal briefcase girls, to be honest with you. I was saying, look, it's a nice story. The Deal or No Deal briefcase girl who married a long heir to the throne. But other than that, like, what are we talking about here? Like, it's so silly. But I guess
well, I mean, and my other major point of this, they keep saying that they left because they weren't allowed privacy. And I mean, really, is this the way you get privacy? You go on national, international television with the most famous.
And you want to be on a maximum audience television show.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, I mean, I don't know. It's all, I find it very sad in some ways. I mean, honestly, I don't think this marriage is going to last. And, you know, then what will Harry do?
Well, here's the thing too, is like, so I'm watching it out of pure curiosity, and I'm asking myself, where's Daniel Dale on his Twitter feed to fact check all this, right? Or is he just fact checking people he doesn't like?
He's running to Donald Trump's backyard at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like some of it was easily like and I'm not like your hardcore monarchist, like with knowledge, I mean, of what is and what isn't. But even I'm sitting there, it's like, no, that's not true, you know. And you know, it's just like a lot of it was just easily fact checked. But you know what, you know, the truth is not as exciting as the story, right? So
there you go. All right, you know what, we're gonna wrap that up. that's going to be it for now. We'll see. We'll be a few days from getting on the air. Next weekend we have the Conservative Party National Convention, which we're all involved with. So I think we're all delegates. So we'll be wrapped up in that. We'll talk about that afterward. Could be stuff happening before it, but we'll talk about it afterward. Anyways, for our audience, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with you soon. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.